Hey there, friends. A big problem with society these days is the very fact that people are allowed to get away with saying stupid and incorrect things, blatant, outright lies, and nobody calls them on it. The president is the biggest example of this. This guy has lied for 50 years to the American public. This guy has worn every single hat known to man, depending on which way the wind is blowing today. The guy was an outright racist. He read the eulogy at a Klan member's funeral, Robert Byrd. This guy has twisted and turned depending on who he was trying to appeal to in the voting public. When black people were okay to be oppressed, the guy was a white supremacist. He talked about black people. He wanted to keep schools segregated. He called schools with black people in them jungles. When it wasn't cool and he needed the black vote, suddenly he started to pander to black people. Unfortunately, a huge majority, and this has nothing to do with race, a huge majority of the American public are stupid. They will let a career liar like Joe Biden lie to their face, and they never call him out. We have the internet. We have history. We have the ability to vet and check every single thing a person says. Yet the American people, for the most part, are too stupid and too lazy to do that because it's easier to just take what the mainstream media spoon feeds them and make sure they rush home to catch the latest version of American Idol or whatever stupid show that still comes on that they're more interested in rather than American politics. Joe Biden went to South Carolina earlier this week, Monday, and he spoke at a black church. He talked about Trump's comments about the shooting in Iowa, and this is what he had to say. I'm going to break down what this hateful old bastard had to say sitting in this church in South Carolina.
My response is, we have to stop it. So your children, your family, your friends can leave your home, walk the streets, go to stores, go to the grocery store, and go to church to be safe from gun violence. There's no excuse for this carnage.
Okay, first of all, don't shout at me, you old bastard. You're not my dad. Thank God. I've never showered with my dad. This guy right here talks about how people don't feel safe walking the streets. You know why they don't feel safe? Because so many of these people do comply with these stupid gun rules that you try to push out there. So they're not armed, right? State of New York, a lot of these other states out there who are disarming their people, they don't feel safe walking the streets because you are so hell-bent on disarming them. And the fact that you sit here and talk about church like it's a place that you frequent often, I wonder if you had a very private conversation with a man of the cloth, whether it was a priest or a preacher or a pastor, it doesn't matter what denomination it is, and you stood there and explained to him how you and your daughter used to bathe and shower together. I'm not talking about when she was an infant. I'm talking about when she was a young lady. I wonder if you would brag so much about being in church as often as you do, like in this video, because I'm not so sure that you would be welcome back to that church.
We have to ban assault weapons. I did it once before, and I'm going to come back again and do it.
Assault weapons. This guy, okay, I did it once before, I'm going to come back and do it. He didn't do it before. Joe Biden did not ban assault weapons before. Congress did. Joe Biden was sucking off of the government back then in the 90s when we had an assault weapons ban. He was one of 50 senators, one of 100 senators. He voted for the assault weapons ban. He didn't ban assault weapons. This is not, so this is not what they call a democracy. This is a constitutional republic. We have people who represent people who vote. So one person did not ban assault weapons, as this guy says. Now, he's trying to do all that now. He's trying to be a dictator and sidestep the whole constitutional republic, but he's not going to. He's just attempting to with rulemaking. So that's what this guy is trying to do. And he's trying to get these people who are too stupid to realize that they're looking at a racist sitting in their church and applauding him for something stupid that would simply disarm them and make them less safe. Let's remember, that all gun control originated via racism. All of it. All of the ideas of limiting access to firearms started in the early part of this country, and it was all predicated on racism. So he is dealing with the roots of racism whenever he talks about banning something in a black church. Come on, stupid people. Wake up and realize what you're looking at here.
Ban high-capacity magazines.
There is no such thing. In fact, if he is referring to a 30-round magazine, he needs to be saying, ban standard capacity magazines, because these are not high capacity. A gas tank on a car, if it's 20 gallons, that is not a high capacity gas tank. If most of the cars in America have a 20,000 gallon gas tank on it, right? You know what a high capacity gas tank is? Maybe 50 gallons. I have a 36 gallon gas tank on my truck. That's an upgrade. That's not a standard capacity tank. So when he refers to 30 round magazines as high capacity, he is factually incorrect. He is trying to dupe stupid people. And note the applaud when he does it. Stupid people.
You have to pass a universal background checks.
When they say universal background checks, what they're really trying to do is dupe you, because they know, in many cases, they're talking to stupid people. They're trying to convince you that we don't have background checks. Most people don't realize that if they've never bought a gun before, we've got background checks. And if you looked at and tried to fill out a background check, you would realize how in-depth and intrusive and unconstitutional they are. What he's talking about when he says universal background checks is the same thing all of these other clowns talk about. They're talking about outlawing private sales and transfers of firearms between me and you. If I have a firearm that I no longer want, or if you want to use or even borrow in some cases, my duck hunting shotgun, they're wanting me to go to an FFL, fill out a background check, transfer it to them, then you go fill out a background check and they transfer it to you. 2 background checks would take place. What does that mean? That means the cost of guns will go up, because nobody can do that for free. You're paying somebody 15 to 20 bucks to work that background check. You cannot do that for free. So they're going to say, oh, the gun lobbies they're trying to up the cost of guns or transfers to try to act like we did a bad thing whenever we push these universal background checks. No, it's called business. These idiots in Washington, in most cases, couldn't run a lemonade stand. They don't know how to run businesses. That's why the government is always so upside down. They literally lose money on hamburgers with a government-run railroad system with Amtrak. These people can't manage anything. In fact, they see this as a bottomless pit. They don't understand that it's real money. They don't understand when they borrow money that that's real money. So these people do not understand capitalism and how business, true business in the heartland and the rest of the United States works. Because everything is free to them. Everything is. They get kickbacks. They get everything handed to them. They do not understand how things work. So whenever they do implement their outlawing of private gun sales, you will see the cost of those transfers and guns in general begin to rise, because somebody has to absorb that cost, and it will be passed back on to you, the end user. These people applauding are the dumbasses that are going to be paying for that increase, and they're applauding.
You have to pass a universal background checks. It doesn't violate the Second Amendment. It's common sense, and it saves lives.
2 things he said in that statement, and 2 things were wrong in that statement. It doesn't violate the Second Amendment. It 1,000% does. Whenever you outlaw the transfer of firearms to somebody else, that is a violation of the Second Amendment. There is nothing in the Second Amendment that says that I have to fill out a background check and that you got to check me out before I actually transfer a firearm to somebody else. It is 100% a violation of the Second Amendment. And
common sense, and it saves lives.
It's definitely not common sense. These people don't understand common sense. And it doesn't save lives. You can't measure something that hasn't happened. You cannot measure saving somebody's life. The only way to measure saving someone's life is if there was a car crash. And let's say 4 people were in a car and it rolled down a hill and the car caught on fire. If I go down there and pull 4 people out of that car who could not have gotten out on their own, I saved 4 people's lives. Whenever you tell me that outlawing a transfer between me and a perfectly honest, law-abiding citizen, you can't quantify that as a life saved. How would transfers equate to a life saved? Think about this for a second. I don't want to use the rhetoric that these people do, and I want to try to be fairer than what these idiots like Joe Biden, fairer than what they are. How in the world, think of the worst case scenario of a transfer of what he's trying to outlaw. Even criminals exchanging these on the street, stealing a gun and then selling it to somebody else on the street. You can't even say that saves lives. Because if this blooming idiot thinks that Rodney selling a gun to Gary out of the trunk of a car that's stolen suddenly stops because you outlaw private sales, I know he's not that stupid. I know this guy is a babbling, slobbering, mushy, smooth-brained, rotten potato. He is a freaking vegetable. In fact, I don't know how or what they injected him with to be able to have him talk as coherently as he did in this video, because he actually did. But no one believes what this guy is saying when it comes to saving lives and thinking for one moment that a criminal gives 2 rips about some stupid little rule that you put out there that now says that Paul cannot transfer a gun to his cousin, uncle, or nephew. This guy is a lifelong racist. I would have to say that maybe Lyndon B. Johnson is probably the only other high-profile politician, president of course, who is maybe more racist or equally racist as Joe Biden.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
Again, I want to remind you guys that Robert Byrd, who was also a senator, and that was Joe Biden's homie, Joe Biden read his eulogy at Robert Byrd's funeral. Robert Byrd was an exalted cyclops, a recruiter for the KKK. Joe Biden heaps praise on Robert Byrd every chance he gets and calls him his mentor. Let me ask you this. How many of you out there have read a eulogy at a Klansman's funeral? I haven't.
They're going to put you all back in chains. God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.